Commander Tae-jin stepped into the Villani Command Center and immediately understood why these aliens had never won a war. The entire space was designed for beauty and cooperation, not conflict. Soft lights pulsed through crystal walls, and the control stations looked more like art pieces than military equipment. Veltara Shimmering Stone approached him cautiously. She was taller than he expected, maybe 7 feet, and her crystalline body caught the light in amazing ways. But her movements showed fear and uncertainty. "Commander Tae-jin," she said, her voice creating musical harmonics. "I must ask, what do you want in return for your help?" The question surprised him. "Nothing, Counselor. You asked for help against an invasion. That's enough." "But the mercenary agreement?" "There is no mercenary agreement. This is a military alliance between Earth and the Villani Confederation. We help you win this war, and hopefully, we can be friends afterward." Veltara's crystalline form shifted colors, which Tae-jin was learning meant she was confused. "You would fight and possibly die for people you just met?" "Counselor, that's what humans do." While Tae-jin talked with the Villani leaders, his teams were already working. Dr. Nari set up her equipment to study Villani biology and technology. Chief Engineer Dong-hyun examined their ships and defensive systems. Intelligence Officer Ji Hye started collecting information about their enemy, the Drakari Empire. Colonel So-young arrived with the first wave of Marines, but quickly realized this wouldn't be a normal military operation. The Villani had no ground forces, no weapons training, and no understanding of military tactics. "Sir," she reported to Tae-jin, "these people have never fought a war. Their idea of defense is hiding behind energy shields and hoping the enemy goes away." "What about their technology?" "Amazing in some ways, useless in others. Their ships can do things our engineers said were impossible, but they have no weapons stronger than mining tools." General Byung-ho joined the conversation. He had just finished reviewing Villani military records, which took about 5 minutes because there weren't many. "Commander, they've been fighting this war for 3 years and haven't won a single battle. They just run away or hide every time. The Drakari attack. Then how are they still alive? Their technology is incredibly advanced for defense and escape. They can make their ships invisible, create energy barriers that stop most weapons, and their space stations can actually move, if needed. But they've never thought to use any of this offensively." Dr. Nari approached with her preliminary biological report. "Sir, I'm starting to understand why they're so peaceful. The Villani are essentially living crystals. They reproduce by harmonic resonance. Basically, they sing new Villani into existence. Their entire culture is built around harmony, cooperation, and sharing knowledge. That explains why they're so advanced technologically," Tae-jin said. "Yes, but it also explains why they're terrible at war. Fighting goes against everything they are. They literally cannot think in terms of attacking enemies." Chief Engineer Dong-hyun had more concrete information. "Sir, I've analyzed both Villani and captured Drakari technology. The Villani are at least 50 years ahead of us in most sciences, but they've never weaponized any of it. The Drakari are maybe 20 years behind us technologically, but everything they build is designed for war. What about their ships? The Drakari ships are powerful but predictable. They rely on individual strength rather than coordinated tactics. Each ship is like a fortress, very tough, but they don't work together well." Intelligence Officer Ji Hye had been analyzing Drakari communication intercepts and captured data files. Her report was more disturbing. "Sir, this isn't just a war of conquest. The Drakari Empire has been systematically destroying species across this entire sector of the galaxy. In the past 200 years, they've completely eliminated 47 different civilizations." Tae-jin felt cold. "Genocide." "Yes, sir. And according to their strategic plans, they're not planning to stop with the Villani. They want to use this system as a staging area for expansion toward Earth's general direction. So we're not just helping the Villani, we're protecting ourselves." "Eventually, yes, sir." General Byung-ho pulled up strategic displays showing the Drakari Empire's expansion pattern. "Commander, if they take this system, they'll control the main hyperspace routes in this sector. That gives them access to at least 12 other star systems, including some that have jump points leading back toward Earth." Taejin studied the displays for a long time. Finally, he called for a meeting with all department heads in Villani leadership. The meeting took place in the Villani Council Chamber, a beautiful crystal dome that amplified harmonic vibrations. Veltara and 5 other Villani counselors sat across from the human officers. "Counselors," Taejin began, "we need to understand this conflict completely. Tell us about the Drakari." Veltara's form dimmed with sadness. "They appeared in our space 3 years ago. At first we tried to communicate to find out what they wanted. They responded by destroying one of our colonies and demanding our complete surrender." "What did you do?" "We tried to negotiate. We offered to share our technology to help them with whatever problems they faced. They destroyed another colony." Counselor Rendar Brightsong spoke next. "We realized they didn't want to coexist. They wanted to own everything, so we began running and hiding. For 3 years? Yes. We saved as many of our people as we could and abandoned system after system. This is our last major stronghold." General Byung-ho leaned forward. "Counselors, with respect, running away is not a strategy, it's just delayed defeat. But what else could we do? We're not warriors." "You don't have to be," Lieutenant Colonel So Young said. "That's what allies are for." Dr. Nari had been studying Villani cultural data. "Counselors, your people have incredible abilities. You can share thoughts and experiences directly. You can interface with technology in ways we can't imagine. You can even manipulate matter at the molecular level. These aren't just scientific advantages, they're military ones. We would never use our gifts to harm others," Veltara said firmly. "What if you used them to protect others?" Taejin asked. "What if instead of thinking about attacking enemies, you thought about defending friends?" The Villani counselors exchanged harmonic communications that sounded like crystal wind chimes. Finally, Veltara spoke. "What are you suggesting?" Chief Engineer Dong Hyun spread out technical diagrams. "Your ships can phase partially out of normal space. Our ships have weapons and armor. What if we combined them? Villani ships with human weapons, human ships with Villani defenses. Integration crews," Captain Wubin added. "Villani navigators and sensor operators working with human gunners and tacticians. Shared technology development," Dr. Nari continued. "Your harmonic abilities could revolutionize our communication systems. Our weapons technology could give you the tools to actually fight back." Intelligence Officer Ji-hai pulled up her strategic analysis. "But we need to understand something. First, the Drakari have a fleet of over 3,000 ships. We have 847. Normally, that would be a problem." "Normally?" Veltara asked. "The Drakari fight like individual warriors. Each ship operates independently, trying to prove its strength. Humans fight as a coordinated unit, every ship working together toward a common goal." General Byung-ho nodded. "Plus, they've been winning easily for years. They're confident, maybe overconfident. They won't expect serious resistance. And they definitely won't expect the Villani to fight back," Lieutenant Colonel So Young added. Taejin looked around the chamber at both his officers and the alien counselors. "Here's what I propose. We combine our fleets and our technologies. We train Villani crews in combat operations, not to kill but to protect. We integrate our ships and systems. And then we show the Drakari something they've never seen before." "What's that?" Veltara asked. "A species that refuses to be conquered." Counselor Rendar Brightsong's harmonic voice carried new tones. Hope, mixed with determination. "You truly believe we can win?" "Counselor," Taejin said, 3 days ago you were facing extinction alone. Now you have the entire human fleet fighting beside you, and we're sharing everything we know about warfare. The Drakari are about to learn that there's a big difference between conquering defenseless civilians and fighting a real military force." "What do you need from us?" Chief Engineer Dong Hyun answered first. "Access to your technology, especially your phasing systems and harmonic equipment," Dr. Nari added. "Cultural exchange programs so we can understand each other better." Intelligence Officer Ji-hai continued. "All your data on Drakari tactics, ship designs, and strategic plans." General Byung-ho finished. "And volunteers. Villani, who are willing to learn combat operations. Veltara looked at her fellow counselors. Their harmonic communication lasted several minutes. When it ended, she turned back to the humans. Commander Taijin, the Volani Confederation accepts your alliance proposal. We will share everything we have and learn everything you can teach us. Even combat operations? Even combat operations, you're right. We're not warriors by nature, but we can learn to be protectors. As the meeting ended and both groups began planning their joint operations, Taijin felt something he hadn't expected. He had come here to help strangers, but these aliens were becoming something more important. Kesseron Blue Light's hands shook as she worked at the communication console. The crystal formations that made up her fingers clicked against the control panel with nervous energy. Around her, the Volani command center buzzed with quiet panic. Their beautiful crystal ships were no match for the Drakari war fleet that would arrive in just 3 days. Any response from the mercenary guilds? Asked Veltara Shimmering Stone, the High Counselor. Her voice carried the harmonic undertones that showed her deep worry. Nothing from the Corvin Guild or the Free Traders, Kesseron replied. But I found something in the old data files. There's a reference to something called the Terran Mercenary Guild. The coordinates are old, maybe 50 cycles, but it's our last chance. Veltara's crystalline form dimmed slightly. The Volani had tried everything. Their defensive systems were strong, but the Drakari had overwhelming numbers. They needed fighters, soldiers who could think like warriors. The peaceful Volani had never been good at war. Send the message, Veltara said. Offer them whatever payment they want. Kesseron began transmitting. The old coordinates pointed to a system far from the main trade routes. She sent the standard mercenary request. Immediate assistance needed, good payment promised, small defensive force required. She estimated they would need maybe 10 or 12 ships to make a difference. The message traveled through space, bouncing off old relay stations and ancient communication networks. But something was wrong with the coordinates. The data files had been corrupted during a solar storm decades ago. Instead of reaching a mercenary guild, the message arrived at Earth's United Defense Command. Admiral Hyun-Soo was reviewing patrol reports when the communication came in. The message was strange, full of translation errors and unfamiliar terms. But one thing was clear: someone was asking Earth for military help against an invasion. Sir, this appears to be humanity's first official request for interstellar military assistance, said his aide, Lieutenant Commander Sora. Hyun-Soo studied the message carefully. The translation software worked overtime to make sense of the alien language. Words like mercenary came through as honored warriors. The request for small force translated as mighty fleet. Most importantly, the message seemed to be an official diplomatic request from something called the Volani Confederation. This is it, Hyun-Soo said quietly. First contact with a friendly alien species, and they're asking for our help. He turned to his staff. Activate Protocol 7. Full fleet mobilization. Sir, are you sure? Protocol 7 is for major threats to Earth itself, Sora said. Lieutenant Commander, if this is really our first contact with aliens, and they're being invaded by someone else, then this is a major threat to Earth. We show up in force or we show up looking weak. There's no middle ground in first contact situations. Within hours, every human military ship in the solar system received mobilization orders. The massive dreadnought Indomitable Will led the fleet, followed by carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. In total, 847 ships prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. Commander Taijin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Will as the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. As fleet commander, he carried the responsibility for humanity's first impression on the galactic stage. Dr. Nari, the expedition's xenobiologist, worked nearby, reviewing everything they knew about the aliens who had asked for help. What do we know about these Volani? Taijin asked. Very little, Nari admitted. The message suggests they're a peaceful species under attack. Their technology seems advanced enough for interstellar communication, but they're clearly desperate if they're calling for outside help. Captain Wubin, the tactical officer, looked up from his displays. Sir, our scout ships report that we're ready for jump. All 847 vessels are in formation. Taijin nodded. Jump. The human fleet disappeared from Earth's solar system in a burst of twisted space-time, heading toward coordinates that would change everything. 3 days later, Kesseran was monitoring her communication equipment when her sensors started screaming. High Counselor, ships approaching, many ships. Veltara rushed to the sensor station. What she saw made her crystal form turn pale blue with fear. Hundreds of ships were dropping out of hyperspace near their system. The vessels were massive, built for war, and there were so many of them. The Drakari are early, she whispered, and they brought their entire fleet. But something was wrong. These ships didn't match Drakari designs. They were angular where Drakari ships were curved, functional where Drakari vessels were decorative. And they were sending communication, signals instead of attack patterns. High Counselor, Kesseran said, her voice shaking. They're trying to talk to us, and the signal format matches the one I sent 3 days ago. What do you mean? I think these might be the mercenaries I contacted. Veltara stared at the sensor displays. She had expected maybe a dozen mercenary ships. Instead, nearly 1,000 alien vessels filled her screens, led by a ship so large it could probably destroy their entire space station by itself. On the indomitable will, Commander Taijin studied the alien space station through the main viewer. It was beautiful, made of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with soft light. But it was also clearly built for peaceful purposes, with no visible weapons. Dr. Nari, are you getting readings on the aliens? Yes, sir. They appear to be silicon-based lifeforms, possibly crystalline in nature. Their technology is incredibly advanced in some areas, but I'm not seeing any military applications. No weapons? None that I can detect. Sir, I don't think these are warriors at all. They might be more like scientists or artists. Captain, Wubin looked puzzled. Then why did they call for military assistance? Before anyone could answer, a communication came through. The translator worked for several minutes before producing understandable words. Unknown fleet. This is High Counselor Veltara Shimmering Stone of the Villani Confederation. We did not expect such a large response to our request. Are you the Terran Mercenary Guild? Taijin exchanged glances with his officers. Dr. Nari, respond to them. Tell them we're from Earth and we received their request for military assistance. The communication that came back was filled with confusion and what sounded like panic. Finally, Veltara's voice came through clearly. You are not mercenaries? No, Counselor. We are the military forces of Earth. We understand you face an invasion and require assistance. We're here to help. There was a long silence from the alien station. When Veltara spoke again, her voice was very small. All of those ships. For us? Yes, Counselor, we don't abandon allies. But we're not allies. We just sent a message asking for hired help. Taijin smiled even though the aliens couldn't see him. Counselor, someone asked Earth for help against an invasion. That makes you our allies. Now may I request permission to come aboard your station? We need to discuss strategy. Another long pause, then, permission granted, but Commander, there are so many of you. We only expected a few ships. Counselor, Taijin said, when someone calls Earth for help, we don't send just a few ships. We send enough ships to win. As the commander prepared to shuttle over to the alien station, Dr. Nari approached him. Sir, I don't think they understand what they've gotten themselves into. What do you mean? They sent a message asking for a small mercenary force. Instead, they got the entire human military. They're probably terrified. Taijin considered this. Then we'll have to show them they have nothing to fear from us, and everything to fear from whoever's been threatening them. The shuttle launched toward the Crystal Station, carrying humanity's first diplomatic mission to another species. Behind them, 847 human warships waited in formation, ready for Earth's first interstellar war. Kesseran watched the human shuttle approach and wondered what her accidental message had brought to their peaceful system. She had no way of knowing that she had just changed the course of galactic history forever. 2 weeks of joint training had changed everything. Squadron leader Minho watched his fighter pilots practice formation flying with Volani crystal ships and still couldn't believe what he was seeing. The alien vessels moved like living things, flowing through space in patterns that should have been impossible. Blue leader to Crystal Wing, he called over the communication system. Ready for combat maneuver 7. Crystal Wing ready, Blue leader, came the harmonic reply from Kesavol Singing Light, his Volani wingmate. Initiating phase shift in 3, 2, 1. The Volani ship suddenly became translucent, existing partly in normal space and partly somewhere else. Minho's fighters dove through the formation, firing practice shots at drone targets that the Volani sensors could detect, but human weapons could hit. It was like having perfect reconnaissance combined with perfect firepower. Incredible, muttered Captain Wubin from the command ship. The Volani can see enemy ships hiding behind asteroids or energy fields, and our pilots can hit targets the aliens can't even touch. In the Marine training facilities, Sergeant Major Haywan was teaching a very different kind of lesson. She had 12 Volani volunteers learning what humans called aggressive defense tactics. The crystalline beings had been reluctant at first, but they learned quickly once they understood the concept. Remember, Haywan told them, we're not trying to hurt anyone. We're trying to stop them from hurting others. Your harmonic abilities can disrupt enemy systems without causing permanent damage. Velran Cleartone, one of the Volani volunteers, raised her crystal hand. Sergeant Major, our harmonics can affect neural pathways in most organic species. We could render Drakari crews unconscious without harming them. That's perfect. Non-lethal. Takedowns are actually better than kills in many situations. Unconscious enemies can't fight back, but they also can't call for help or trigger self-destruct systems. Dr. Kyung-soo was having the most exciting 2 weeks of his scientific career. Working with Volani researchers, he had discovered that their harmonic technology could do far more than anyone had imagined. In his laboratory aboard the Indomitable Will, he demonstrated his latest breakthrough to Commander Tae-jin. Sir, watch this, he said, activating a small Volani crystal device. The crystal began to vibrate, producing a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Across the room, a captured Drakari weapon simply stopped working. What happened to it? The harmonic frequency disrupted the weapon's neural interface. Drakari technology is partially biological. It responds to their brain patterns. The Volani harmonics can jam that connection completely. Can we scale this up? We're working on it. Imagine being able to disable an entire enemy ship without firing a shot. But the most dramatic changes were happening with the ships themselves. Commander Yunji supervised the installation of human weapon systems on Volani vessels, while Volani engineers added their phasing technology to human ships. The results were beyond what either species could achieve alone. The first test came sooner than expected. Sir, we have incoming ships, reported Lieutenant Ha Young from the sensor station. 12 Drakari raiders, approaching from the outer system. Commander Tae-jin smiled grimly. Perfect timing. Captain Sunwoo, take your destroyer group and show our new allies what integrated tactics can do. Captain Sunwoo commanded 4 human destroyers and 3 Volani crystal ships. His mixed squadron had been training together for only 10 days, but they were about to face their first real test. All ships, this is Destroyer Leader, Sunwoo announced. Execute Plan Beta 7, Crystal Wing, initiate deep phase. Thunderwing, follow my lead. The Volani ships disappeared from normal space, becoming invisible to enemy sensors. The human destroyers charged directly toward the Drakari raiders, appearing to be alone and outnumbered. Drakthor Ironclaw commanded the Drakari raid group. He had destroyed dozens of Volani ships over the past 3 years, and these new contacts looked like easy prey. 12 enemy ships against 4 defenders. It would be over quickly. All ships, attack formation. Show these crystal singers how real warriors fight. The Drakari ships accelerated toward Sunwoo's destroyers, their weapons charging. They expected the usual pattern. The Volani would run away, maybe firing a few weak shots before retreating. Instead, the human ships opened fire at maximum range, with weapons the Drakari had never seen before. Railgun projectiles and particle beams struck Drakari shields with devastating force. What are these weapons? Drakthor snarled. Crystal singers don't use military-grade firepower. Before he could adjust his tactics, the invisible Volani ship struck from behind. They materialized just long enough to fire harmonic disruptors directly into the Drakari ship's neural systems. 3 enemy vessels went dead in space, their crews unconscious but alive. Impossible, where did they come from? Captain Sunwoo's voice came over open channels. Drakari ships, this is Captain Sunwoo of the Earth Defense Force. You are attacking allies of humanity. Surrender now and you will be treated according to galactic law. Earth? What is Earth? Drakthor demanded. Earth is the planet that's about to teach you the difference between conquest and cooperation. Last chance to surrender. The Drakari response was predictable. They attacked with everything they had, but their weapons couldn't hit enemies they couldn't see, and their shields couldn't stop the combined assault of human firepower and Volani precision. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it ended, 9 Drakari ships were disabled, their crews unconscious from harmonic disruption. 2 had surrendered when they realized they were completely outmatched. Only 1 had escaped, racing back toward the main Drakari fleet. Crystal Wing, excellent work, Sunwoo reported. Thunder Wing, secure the disabled vessels. Medical teams, prepare to treat Drakari wounded. Drakthor Ironclaw found himself in a human detention cell 3 hours later, facing Commander Taejin and Dr. Nari. The Drakari war chief was confused and angry, but mostly he was shocked. You are not crystal singers, he said finally. No, we're humans. We're from Earth. I have never heard of this Earth. Most people in this galaxy haven't, but that's about to change. Dr. Nari stepped forward with a medical scanner. War Chief, you're not injured, just stunned by the harmonic disruptor. The effect will wear off completely in a few hours. Why aren't you killing me? Because we don't kill prisoners, Taejin said simply. We're going to ask you some questions, treat any injuries your people have, and then we'll discuss prisoner exchange with your fleet commander. You would trade prisoners? Even after we attacked you? War Chief, that's how civilized people conduct warfare. Drakthor stared at the human commander for a long time. I don't understand you. You fight like warriors, but you act like crystal singers. We fight like humans. That means we fight hard when we have to, but we try to find better solutions when we can. The interrogation revealed crucial information about Drakari tactics and fleet strength. More importantly, it showed that individual Drakari weren't necessarily evil. They were part of a system that rewarded conquest and punished weakness. Back in the Volani Council Chamber, the leadership of both species gathered to plan their next moves. The successful skirmish had boosted Volani confidence, but everyone knew the real challenge was still coming. The escaped Drakari ship will report back to their main fleet, Intelligence Officer Ji-Hai reported. We should expect a major assault within the next few days. How major? Asked Veltara. Based on the prisoners' information, probably 200 ships in the first wave. If that fails, they'll bring their full battle fleet, over 3,000 vessels. General Byung-ho studied tactical projections. 200 ships we can handle. With our current forces, 3,000, that's a different problem. What about the harmonic disruptors? Asked Counselor Rendar Brightsong. If we can disable entire enemy fleets? Dr. Kyung-soo shook his head. We can scale up the technology, but not that much. Maybe we can disable 50 ships at once under perfect conditions. Squadron leader Minho had an idea. What if we don't try to disable their entire fleet? What if we target their command ships? Explain, Taejin said. The Drakari fight as individuals, but they still follow orders from fleet commanders. Disable. The command ships and the rest of their fleet becomes confused and uncoordinated. Captain Wubin nodded enthusiastically. Hit-and-run tactics using the Volani phasing ability. Strike the command ships, disappear before they can respond. Repeat until their fleet structure collapses. That could work. General Byung-ho agreed. But it requires perfect coordination and precise intelligence about their command structure. Sergeant Major Hae-won grinned. Sir, we have 12 Drakari prisoners. I bet at least one of them knows which ships carry the fleet commanders. As the meeting continued, plans took shape for what would become known as the Battle of Cathara. It would be humanity's first major space battle, the Volani's first real military victory, and the beginning of the end for the Drakari Empire's expansion. But first, they had to survive the next few days. "Commanders," Tae-Jin said as the meeting ended, "in 72 hours we're going to face the largest space fleet in Drakari history. They've never lost a major battle, and they're coming here to make sure they don't start now." "What's our biggest advantage?" asked Veltara. Admiral Hyun-Soo arrived from Earth with news that changed everything. His reinforcement fleet brought not just more ships, but civilian specialists, engineers, doctors, teachers, and scientists. More importantly, he brought new orders from Earth's government. "Commander Tae-Jin," he said in the privacy of the flagship's ready room, "Earth has decided this is more than a military operation. This is humanity's first interstellar alliance, and we're committed to it completely." "What does that mean, sir?" "It means we're not just here to win a war. We're here to build a lasting partnership with the Volani, and possibly with any other species that wants to join us instead of being conquered by empires like the Drakari." Tae-Jin felt the weight of responsibility. "Sir, the Drakari main fleet will be here within hours. 3,000 ships." "I know. That's why I brought the second fleet." Hyun-Soo smiled. 800 more ships, including our newest experimental vessels. The new ships were impressive, but what caught Tae-Jin's attention were the hybrid vessels, ships built using both human and Volani technology, constructed in Earth's orbital shipyards over the past month. Commander Yoonji supervised the arrival of the first truly integrated starships. They looked like nothing either species had built before. Sleek, human engineering combined with the flowing crystal technology of the Volani. When she reported to Admiral Hyun-Soo, her excitement was obvious. "Sir, these ships are incredible. They can phase in and out of normal space like Volani vessels, but they carry human weapons and armor. More importantly, they're designed for integrated crews from the beginning." "How integrated?" "Human tactical officers working directly with Volani navigators. Volani engineers interfaced with human weapon systems. Complete information sharing through harmonic communication networks. Master Chief Jae-sung had been working with Volani volunteers for 3 weeks, and the results amazed everyone. The crystalline beings learned military operations faster than any human recruits he had ever trained. It's their harmonic abilities," he explained to Admiral Hyun-Soo. "When one Volani learns something, they can share the knowledge directly with others through their crystal resonance. Teach one Volani how to operate a weapon system, and within hours a dozen others know it just as well. What about their reluctance to fight?" "That's actually not a problem anymore, sir. Once they understood that we were teaching them to protect, rather than attack, they embraced the training completely. They're natural defenders. But the most significant development came from an unexpected source. Intelligence Officer Ji Hye had spent weeks analyzing captured Drakari data and interviewing prisoners. What she discovered changed how everyone viewed the conflict. "Admiral, the Drakari aren't expanding because they're evil. They're expanding because they're desperate." "Explain." "Their homeworld is dying. Environmental collapse, resource depletion, massive population growth. They're facing extinction within 50 years if they don't find new worlds to colonize." Admiral Hyun-Soo studied the environmental data. "So they've chosen conquest over cooperation?" "Yes, sir. But here's the important part. They chose conquest because they didn't think cooperation was possible. In their experience, other species either surrender immediately or fight to the death. They've never encountered anyone willing to negotiate from a position of strength." "You think they might be willing to talk?" "I think they might be, if we can show them there are alternatives to conquest." The conversation was interrupted by urgent alerts from the sensor stations. The Drakari main fleet had arrived. 3,000 ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. At their head flew the massive dreadnought Void's Edge, flagship of Empress Shal Andra Void Heart herself. The sight of so many warships would have terrified any normal species. Instead, Admiral Hyun-Soo activated fleet-wide communications. "All ships, this is Admiral Hyun-Soo. Today we face the largest space fleet in galactic history. They've conquered 47 different species over 2 centuries. They've never lost a major battle. He paused, letting that information sink in. Today they find out what it's like to fight humans and Volani working together. All ships assume defensive positions. Operation Harmony is now in effect. Operation Harmony was the most ambitious military plan either species had ever attempted. Instead of trying to destroy the Drakari fleet, they would disable it using coordinated harmonic disruptors while demonstrating overwhelming defensive capability. Empress Shalandra Voidheart stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the defensive formation ahead. She had expected to find the usual Volani crystal ships hiding behind energy barriers. Instead, she faced nearly 2,000 vessels in a military formation that looked both familiar and alien. War Chief Kethron, what are those angular ships mixed in with the crystal singers? Unknown design, Empress. They don't match any species in our databases. Mercenaries? Perhaps, but mercenaries don't usually coordinate this well with their employers. The Empress had come personally because the escaped raider had brought disturbing reports. Something had changed in the Kethara system, and she needed to understand what. All ships advanced to attack formation. Let's see what these crystal singers have learned. The Drakari fleet moved forward in their traditional pattern, massive dreadnoughts leading, surrounded by layers of cruisers and destroyers. It was in formation designed to overwhelm any defense through sheer firepower. Admiral Hyun-Soo watched them approach and felt almost sorry for them. They were about to encounter tactics they had never seen, used by species they didn't understand. Commander Yunji, Initiate Phase 1. The integrated ship suddenly vanished from Drakari sensors, becoming invisible while remaining perfectly coordinated through Volani harmonic communication networks. From the enemy's perspective, half the defending fleet had simply disappeared. Phase 2. Human long-range weapons opened fire from maximum distance, targeting Drakari shields and sensors rather than trying to destroy ships. The enemy found themselves partially blinded while under attack from weapons with twice their normal range. Phase 3. The invisible ships reappeared in perfect formation throughout the Drakari fleet, but instead of firing weapons, they activated harmonic disruptors. The effect was immediate and stunning. 50 Drakari ships went dead in space simultaneously, their crews rendered unconscious by the harmonic frequencies. Another 100 ships found their weapon systems completely disabled, though their crews remained awake and unharmed. Phase 4. The human and Volani ships moved into defensive positions around the disabled Drakari vessels, making it clear they could destroy them at any time, but choosing not to. Then Admiral Hyun-Soo did something that shocked everyone, including his own officers. He opened communications with the Drakari flagship, Empress Shalandra Voidheart. This is Admiral Hyun-Soo of the Earth Defense Force. I request immediate ceasefire and diplomatic negotiations. The silence lasted for several minutes. When the Empress finally responded, her voice carried confusion and something that might have been fear. You are not crystal singers. No, we're humans. We're from a planet called Earth. And we'd like to talk. You've disabled a significant portion of my fleet. Yes, but we haven't destroyed any of it. Your crews are unconscious but unharmed. This was a demonstration, not an attack. Another long pause. What do you want? To understand why you're trying to conquer everyone, and to show you that there might be better alternatives. Master Chief Jae-sung, monitoring the communications, whispered to Commander Tae-jin, Sir, I don't think anyone's ever asked them that question before. The negotiations that followed took place on a neutral Volani station, with representatives from all 3 species. Empress Shalandra arrived expecting either surrender terms or a battle to the death. What she found was something entirely new in her experience. Empress, Admiral Hyun-Soo began, our intelligence officer has analyzed your environmental data. Your homeworld is facing ecological collapse. Shalandra's reptilian features showed surprise. How do you know this? Because we've been through something similar. Earth faced environmental crisis 2 centuries ago. We almost destroyed ourselves before we learned to work together. Dr. Nari stepped forward with geological surveys and environmental projections. Your planet can be saved, but it requires terraforming technology that no single species possesses. Terraforming? Commander Yunji activated holographic displays showing the successful restoration of Mars and Europa. We've transformed dead worlds into living ones. The Vallani have harmonic technology that can reshape atmospheric composition. Together, we could restore your homeworld in less than a generation. Veltara Shimmering Stone spoke for the first time. Empress, your people have been conquering others to save themselves. What if you could save yourselves by working with others instead? Shalandra stared at the environmental projections for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was very quiet. You would help us restore our dying world? After we've tried to conquer you. That's what allies do, Taejin said simply. But why? What do you gain? Admiral Hyun-soo smiled. Empress, we gain a galaxy where people solve problems by working together instead of fighting, where species share knowledge instead of hoarding, where the first response to crisis is cooperation, not conquest. 6 months after the Battle of Cathara, Ambassador Yujin stood in the observation deck of the new diplomatic station orbiting the Vallani homeworld. Through the crystal walls, she could see something that would have been impossible to imagine. A year ago, human, Vallani, and Drakari ships working together on the largest terraforming project in galactic history. The Drakari homeworld of Sektar had been dying for over a century. Its atmosphere was poisoned, its oceans were acidic, and its soil could barely support life. But now, massive atmospheric processors built with combined technology from all 3 species were beginning to clean the air, while Vallani harmonic generators worked to restore the planet's natural resonance frequencies. Ambassador, Dr. Nari reported, approaching with the latest survey results. The preliminary restoration is ahead of schedule. Atmospheric toxicity is down 60%, and the Vallani report that the planet's harmonic signature is stabilizing. What about the Drakari population? They're adapting better than expected. Empress Shalandra's decision to relocate most of her people to temporary colonies while we restore their homeworld was difficult, but it's working, and the cooperation between our species during the relocation has been remarkable. Ambassador Yujin had been Earth's first interstellar diplomat, a job that hadn't existed until humanity accidentally got involved in galactic affairs. Now she was overseeing the most complex peace treaty in known history, the Triangular Accord, between Earth, the Vallani Confederation, and the Drakari Empire. The treaty had taken months to negotiate, not because the species disagreed on major points, but because they were trying to create something that had never existed before. A true alliance between 3 completely different civilizations. Engineer Insu arrived with his daily report on the terraforming project. His team of human, Vallani, and Drakari engineers had been working together for 6 months, and their cooperation had produced technological breakthroughs none of them could have achieved alone. Ambassador, we've had another breakthrough. The Drakari industrial techniques, combined with Vallani harmonic manipulation and human coordination systems, have reduced the estimated restoration time from 20 years to 12 years. And the Drakari response? Empress Shalandra cried when we told her. According to War Chief Kethron, it was the first time anyone had seen her cry from happiness in over 50 years. The changes in Drakari culture had been the most dramatic of all. A species that had been at war for 2 centuries was learning to live in peace, and it wasn't easy. But their natural strength and determination, when directed toward creation instead of destruction, was producing amazing results. Dr. Nari had been studying the cultural exchange programs between all 3 species. Ambassador, the psychological profiles are fascinating. Humans adapt to new situations by creating flexible systems. Vallani adapt by harmonizing with existing patterns. Drakari adapt by changing themselves to meet new challenges. How does that affect the alliance? It means each species brings a different kind of strength. When we face a problem, humans create new ways to solve it. Vallani find ways to work with existing solutions, and Drakari push themselves to overcome whatever obstacles remain. Commander Tai Jin, now promoted to Admiral, joined the conversation. He had just returned from a tour of the joint military academies where officers from all three species trained together. Ambassador, the military cooperation is exceeding all expectations. We now have fully integrated crews on over 200 ships. Not just humans and Volani working together, but Drakari officers serving alongside former enemies. Any problems? Surprisingly few. The Drakari respect strength, and they've learned that cooperation is actually a form of strength they never understood before. The Volani appreciate the Drakari's dedication to improvement, and humans, well, humans just like having more friends to work with. The real test of the alliance came when long-range sensors detected new signals from deeper in the galaxy. Other species, other conflicts, other opportunities for the triangular alliance to grow. The first new contact came from a species called the Netheran Collective, a group of machine intelligences that had been fighting a defensive war against organic raiders for decades. Their request for assistance was more carefully worded than the Volani's accidental message, but the response was the same. Within a week, a joint task force of human, Volani, and Drakari ships was heading toward Netheran space. Veltara Shimmering Stone, now serving as the Alliance's first interspecies coordinator, addressed the departing fleet from the diplomatic station. 6 months ago, the Volani faced extinction alone. Today, we send help to others who face the same threat. This is what the Alliance means. No species stands alone against aggression. The Netheran situation resolved quickly once the raiders realized they were facing not just machine defenders, but an alliance of 4 different species working together. The raiders, a group called the Corvin Syndicate, found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered by tactics they had never encountered. More importantly, the alliance offered the Corvin the same choice they had offered the Drakari: join the cooperation or face the consequences of continued aggression. Most of the Corvin chose cooperation. Within a year of the first accidental contact, the Triangular Alliance had become the Pentagonal Alliance, with 5 species working together for mutual defense and development. The diplomatic station at Cathara had expanded into a small city, with representatives from dozens of other species seeking membership or assistance. Kesran Blue Light, the young Volani communications officer who had made the original mistake, now served as the Alliance's first interspecies communications coordinator. Her office wall displayed the original message that had started everything, along with a translation that still made her laugh. The message she had intended to send: small mercenary force needed for defensive assistance, payment negotiable. The message that actually arrived at Earth. Mighty alliance of honored warriors requested for glorious battle, eternal friendship offered. Sometimes, she told visitors, the best things happen when you get the message completely wrong. The Alliance's success attracted attention from across the galaxy. Some species wanted to join, others wanted to trade, and a few wanted to test the Alliance's strength. All of them learned the same lesson: cooperation was stronger than conquest. KQ. Most significant challenge came from the hegemony, a collection of aggressive species that had been expanding through a different section of the galaxy. They viewed the Alliance as a threat to their own expansion and demanded that it disband. The Alliance's response was delivered by Admiral Hyun Soo, now commanding the combined fleets of 7 different species. The Alliance exists to defend cooperation and punish aggression. We have no interest in conquering anyone, but we will defend anyone who asks for our help. The hegemony tested this promise by attacking a small Alliance member species called the Whisper Folk. The response was swift and overwhelming. 40 Alliance ships arrived within days, not to conquer hegemony space, but to establish a defensive perimeter around Whisper Folk territory. The message was clear: attack 1 Alliance member, face all Alliance members. The hegemony chose to negotiate rather than face a war with 7 species working in perfect coordination. 5 years after the first accidental contact, Ambassador Yu Jin stood in the same observation deck. But now she was looking at something impossible: a truly peaceful sector of the galaxy. Trade routes connected dozens of species, joint research stations studied problems that affected everyone, and conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. The alliance had grown to include 12 species, with applications pending from 6 more. But more importantly, the idea of cooperation had spread beyond the alliance itself. Species that had never heard of Earth or the Volani were choosing diplomacy over warfare, trade over conquest. Commander Tai Jin, now serving as the alliance's military coordinator, brought her the latest reports from the frontier. Ambassador, we're receiving signals from 3 new species this week. 2 are requesting assistance with natural disasters, and 1 wants to join the trade network. Any military threats? None. The last major aggressive species in this sector, the Iron Claw Empire, requested alliance membership yesterday. What changed their minds? Economics. They realized they could get more resources through trade and cooperation than through conquest. Plus, all their potential targets are now alliance members. Dr. Nari, now directing the alliance's scientific cooperation programs, had even better news. Ambassador, the joint research projects are producing incredible results. We've developed faster-than-light communication, improved terraforming technology, and medical techniques that work across different biological types. What's the most significant breakthrough? Universal translation protocols. We can now communicate with any species within hours of first contact, instead of months. That means we can offer cooperation immediately, before conflicts have a chance to develop. As the sun set over the Volani homeworld, Ambassador Yu Jin reflected on how much had changed since that first accidental message. Humanity had stumbled into galactic affairs by mistake, but they had helped create something greater than any of them could have achieved alone.